Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Guy Panic Podcast, the only podcast that communicates to young men on the entire internet. Big breaking news story that I thankfully got because I do this show on Thursdays, usually, or Wednesdays, depending. Not too early in the week, so that way all the good news stories can come out right before Friday. United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson shot dead in broad daylight at 7 a.m. in Midtown Manhattan on Wednesday. So Thompson, who was 50, had worked at the giant United Health Group Incorporated for 20 years and ran the insurance arm since 2021 after running its Medicare and retirement business beforehand. He was on his own and about to enter a building when he was shot in the back by a masked assailant who fled on foot before pedaling on a bicycle into Central Park a few blocks away, the NYPD had said. The killing and the shooter's movements in the minutes before and afterward were captured on some of the multitudes of security cameras present in that part of the city. One video showed him approach Thompson from behind, level his pistol, and fire several shots, barely pausing to clear a brief gun jam while the dying health executive tumbled onto the pavement. Police have used drones and helicopters and dogs in an intense search, but the killer's whereabouts remained unknown late into the night and has still not been found. As of the recording of this podcast, could be found today. Who knows? NYPD Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch said that while investigators had not yet established a motive, I wonder what it could be, the shooting was no random act of violence. Police had issued several surveillance images of the man who wore a hooded jacket and a mask that concealed most of his face and wouldn't have attracted attention on a frigid winter day. Some of the photos were taken at a Starbucks coffee shop shortly before the shooting, so the guy went and got coffee before he went and domed the guy. Police initially said the shooter rode into Central Park on a bicycle from the city's bike share program, City Bike, but a spokesperson for the program's operator, Lyft, said police officials informed the company Wednesday afternoon that the bike was not from the City Bike fleet. The words, deny, defend, and depose were on the shell casings, which, while news companies won't acknowledge this, it's a pretty direct reference to a book titled Delay, Deny, Defend. Why Insurance Companies Don't Pay Claims and What You Can Do About It by J.M. Feynman, a book about how insurance companies in America are Satan. And then also about that City Bike part of the story, there was some dude on Twitter, I'm not gonna say his name, so that's rude to go after him or anything, but like he was like scraping for some reason, for some inane reason, he was scraping City Bike data every minute, I guess for a project supposedly. I think he's just really autistic. And he tried to like Reddit self-investigate the shooter, right? Like Reddit Boston bombing style. You know, a brave internet citizen was gonna help the police catch this guy. But when it came out that it's not even a City Bike he used, it's just a giant waste of his stupid time. And honest to God, if the NYPD actually saw his post, which he tried to show like where the bike would have went on like a map, if the NYPD like followed his advice and went and like captured a guy who had nothing to do with this and like, I don't know, arrested him or brutalized him or some shit, it's the NYPD, they probably would brutalize him. That guy should go to jail. That guy should get like some sort of punishment. I do not like Reddit investigators. I hate them. I hate these internet like wannabe sleuths who use like garbage soy data to help people out. Again, if you don't know, during that Boston Marathon bombing with those two weirdo brothers, right? When that happened and they were on the run, Redditors were like supposedly finding out who he was based on like camera footage and photographs and shit, and like we're very confident, and it wasn't them. It's so embarrassing. Okay. Anyways, what do I think about this? Well, I think it is funny how quite literally everyone else on the internet, except for a couple people, were like happy about this. Listen, I like this whole messaging where it's like, we don't know what his motive really was. It's like, come on. The healthcare CEO for one of the biggest healthcare companies, health insurance companies in the country, in the United States, where health insurance is like probably the biggest disgusting scam on the planet. There's no one who wanted that guy dead. Are you kidding me? Now, I'm not going to TOS myself and say anything that's like, untowards or in any way, shape, or form supportive of this, right? I won't say that on YouTube. But it is really funny, right? And, you could probably imagine that as the CEO of that company, he's responsible for the deaths and suffering of like thousands and thousands of people, way more than just the guy who shot like one guy, right? Like, think about it, right? Sure, he didn't say, I want my health insurance company to kill people, haha, but he would be fine with saying, I want my company to deny claims and not pay for people's coverage and have them not utilize the medical institutions this country has and have premature deaths and illnesses and uncovered conditions and then have them go into financial ruin and homelessness, haha. Is that apparently that's the okay way of killing people, by the way, is that. It's still very funny that the guy went to get coffee in that same fit, went there, shot the guy, then ran off. So hilarious. I mean, come on. Like, imagine, and like, okay, a couple things about him. One, people are saying, oh, his gun jammed, but like, what I could imagine happened, right? The gun was like suppressed. Okay, so you're gonna shoot a guy in like broad daylight in New York, right? You're not gonna use an unsuppressed gun, right? No, that's stupid, right? So he had like a suppressed gun with subsonic ammunition, the quietest you can make a handgun feasibly. And subsonic ammunition is not what you'd call powerful. It can still kill a guy, but it ain't got that much in the way of like actual range. So it wouldn't actually manage to, it wouldn't have managed to actually, propel the slide backwards like the gun would work, like semi-automatic guns work. So he pulled it back to do it again, right? I think he intentionally left those casings on the ground because you don't write things on casings like a psychopath and then not expect them to be found, right? But like, yeah, the NYPD, the world's best police force, has the budget of several countries' entire militaries. They're not gonna find this guy. You kidding me? This is too perfect of a crime, right? Like, yeah, he's on camera, but he's just a white guy, or he's a white passing guy, right? You can see his nose and his hands, and that's it. Oh, what about the gun? He can just toss that in the river. Oh, what about his clothes? He's wearing black. All black, and he could just change clothes, right? And there's a million white dudes in New York. He's not like fat or anything. He's like normally built. He has this like one backpack that people found out what backpack that is, right? It's like a certain brand of it. But you can just toss that, right? Or also toss that into the river. There's gonna be a national manhunt for this guy, by the way, right? Because this is a CEO. This guy was a millionaire. He's getting paid millions per year, right? There's gonna be this guy's gonna okay. There will be more earnest hunt for this guy than there probably was for Bin Laden, than for any criminal ever. Okay, because he kind of attacked a certain class of people that don't want to get attacked. Anyways, it's funny that people laughed at this and said it was cool. I saw a bunch of posts on Twitter and other websites saying that like, haha, this is revenge. I'm happy, right? People were happy about it. People were like, in the hospital who are dealing with that health insurer were gloating about it. Also, this is like right before the guy was leaving to go to a business meeting. After his death, the stock went up, which is hilarious. Anyways, I'm not condoning anything on this show because, I don't want YouTube to kill me. Not condoning anything again, it's just an interesting event that happened in the middle of one of the biggest cities on the planet, in the middle of its heart. In Manhattan, there was cars driving by him. I saw the video. It was like Agent 47, right? Like he just like it was. Oh my god! I don't think he missed a single shot. Very, very interesting news story. All right, moving on. What else has happened? Well, in global news, South Korea was under martial law for like 3 hours on Tuesday. South Korean President Yoon declares martial law. So President Yoon had won in 2022. He's a member of the right-wing conservative People Power Party in South Korea. And he's usually compared to like Donald Trump or Jair Bolsonaro, right? He has extremely low approval ratings before this, by the way. It was like 17% disapproval rating. And then like 56% of like people polled in South Korea wanted him resigned or impeached. And for his entire administration, while he was the president, the Korean National Assembly was controlled by the opposition Democratic Party, which had at least enough people in to not supermajority him, but majority him in everything he did and never let anything pass, right? At 10:27 p.m. on Tuesday, Yoon declared martial law, claiming there was North Korean conspiracies behind the Democratic Party in South Korea and its obstruction practices, right? He also ordered that the trainee doctors, resident doctors, and medical staff in South Korea end their strike and go back to work immediately, which is really funny because before this, there was actually a strike by trainee doctors and other people because South Korea's government wanted to expand the number of people going to medical school each year. And from what I can tell, it's not the same as doing that in the United States, I think, because in South Korea, doctors don't actually get paid that much relative to American doctors. And I guess they're more striking because this is just being done to increase the number of doctors and make it like to where they're not even getting paid that much anyways. And the ones striking wanted to instead have better working conditions themselves, right? Which makes it a bit more of a gray area thing. Like if this happened in the United States, if the government was telling universities and medical schools to like expand the number of students they have for, you know, doctorates and medical training, and like every chud doctor in the United States complained and went on strike, it would be entirely unjustified and stupid. But in South Korea, it seems to be very different because apparently healthcare there is way cheaper than it is in the United States because they don't pay doctors that much. And it's organized differently. No expert, but one of the problems that Yoon was having was that because of this, like there was like a legit medical expert shortage in South Korea for a long time, right? And he was very angry about that. So after he declared it, South Korean soldiers went to the assembly building, essentially their Congress building, but they were stopped from entering the main hall where they go to vote by various party officials and employees who happened to be there late enough that night. And then when he declared it, like basically every single political party, including Yoon's own political party, said the martial law declaration was bad, unjust, and needs to stop, like right now. Lawmakers started breaking into the National Assembly building, right? Including the opposition leader, Lee Jae-myung, live streaming himself climbing like a fence to get into it on YouTube. Could you imagine a single Democratic, like American Democratic Party member climbing a fence for anything? No, they're lazy. They would just be like, oh, dang it, right? He got reversed January 6th, right? Like the president, the guy who was president, kicked all the Congress members out. So then Congress members themselves broke into the assembly building to again vote him out instead of a guy who was voted out trying to break in there and get people there to stop legislating, right? Really funny. Then around 12:48 a.m., they ran an emergency session and 190 out of 300 lawmakers voted to end the martial law. Now, it wasn't as if all 300 South Korean legislators were in the hall. No, only 190 people got in to do the vote. Every single one of them voted to end the martial law, including people in his own party. After the vote, the soldiers started leaving and apologizing. There's a bunch of footage of like various people like fighting the soldiers, and you can tell the soldiers don't know what the hell to do, right? They don't have loyalty to this fucking guy. They were just called and mobilized in all their expensive, crazy South Korean military gear, and they're just being yelled at by like Congress people or lawmakers and random citizens and women, and like it's funny as hell, right? Like there's a video of a woman like escape soldiers like pointing his gun at her, trying to go back, and she like grabs the gun barrel and like tosses him to the side. There's a video of like one soldier like getting up to some guy, and the guy literally like fighting game tech grab like grabs him, turns him around, and pushes him away. It's so funny. And then later on that same day, on Wednesday, the opposition announced it was gonna try and impeach Yoon and the vote would be held on December 6th or 7th, right? Yeah, a very funny thing. There's like tons of the joke I've been saying is that this is like the incel coup, right? Because South Korea has a big problem with incel right-wing online stuff, as if every other country doesn't have that problem going on, right? And that the president, since he was like a big chud South Korean guy, sort of like a Trump, he's also an incel. And there was one quote of a guy in his cabinet saying that he did it because he was afraid and lonely, which is really funny. I don't think that's what caused it, but it's still very goddamn funny that this happened. This guy's probably gonna get impeached or is gonna resign. Maybe he's too grumpy to resign, but his ass is not gonna be South Korea's president for much longer. South Korean presidents are funny sometimes. They're kind of wacky. Like 2 presidents ago, it was just one woman who, like, was she impeached or resigned? I forget. Because, like, the person, she was getting counseled by this other woman who was, like, a member of, like, a cult, of a, like, organized political cult, who was having her, like, do preferential stuff. It is funny how in South Korea, people seem to get, like, actually sacked and resign and get politically ruined over, like, at least things that seem like actual corruption, right? Like, people get, like, resigned after, like, influencing a school for someone's kid to get them good grades, right? In the government. That happens all the time in the U.S. That's like how it works in the U.S. practically, right? You kidding me? Right? They seem to have a lot more integrity over there in terms of their, like, political operations than the U.S. has, right? I don't think Trump would ever win an election in South Korea. Anyway, speaking of Donald Trump, next story is not really a story at all. It's more just me rambling for the next 40 minutes. Basically, so last weekend, so Pods of America, it's a podcast hosted by a couple Obama staffers, right? And it's supposed to be like the premier Democratic Party podcast, right? Like, it's their podcast, essentially, right? Because these guys are full-on, blue-blooded, super Democrats. And they had on Harris staffers, right? The Harris campaign's been real quiet this month ever since they lost the election. But they had on 4 very interesting people to talk about the campaign and what they think went wrong. Here's the roster. Here's the rogues gallery, okay? You have Jen O'Malley Dillon, who was the campaign chair, right? She's a wealthy venture capital advisor who worked with Biden and tried telling people he was actually super duper healthy and active when he ran earlier this year, right? Like, she was one of those people who was, like, telling people, like, listen, he's probably healthier than all of us, right? So bad. David Plouffe, senior advisor who worked on Obama's campaign, then an advisor during Obama's presidency, who was fined $90,000 in 2017 when he failed to register as a lobbyist after asking Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel back then to help Uber with airport pickup regulations. So that's how competent this guy is. Stephanie Cutter, a senior advisor, another Obama campaignee/advisor, who back in Obama's election was regarded as a very powerful person in D.C. She helps produce and execute a bunch of Democratic events like the DNCs and Biden's inauguration. And she also famously consulted for GE and Justin Trudeau. Now, those 3 people there are basically all like part of this disgusting consultancy class, talking to Bill and Melinda Gates, talking to General Electric, all these bad moneyed interest people. And then there's Quentin Fulks, who is a deputy campaign manager, is also on there, who worked on J.B. Pritzker's 2018 Illinois gubernatorial campaign and Raphael Warnock's Georgia 2022 Senate re-election campaign, both of which were successful. He was brought on for Joe Biden's 2024 campaign and then moved over to Harris, leading their advertising program. So while he might not be that good at his job at the moment, he at least isn't the same type of consultant, advisor, discussing politics, money person the other 3 are, right? Anyways, so I'm not going to play the podcast or anything like that. I'm just going to discuss essentially what they were saying, right? First thing they were saying, it was a very hard year, okay? These people, oh Christ, these people were so, you could tell that they're not angry about losing. They're not. They're angry about being asked questions about losing. And well, Dan Pfeiffer, who is the host of this podcast episode, one of the hosts of Pod Save America, gave them very, very low ball, easy, conciliatory questions. Never pushed back on anything they said. Very annoying and lame, but also expected. They still sounded like not angry at him, but angry at the public for not, like, feeling sorry for them or some shit. God, it was bad, right? Like, okay, so right off the bat, they started talking about podcasts again, and how, okay, guys, I think we're all very, very, very certain that Kamala lost because there wasn't enough freaking podcasts she was on, right? And the first podcast or show they mention is Hot Ones. Now, if you don't know, Hot Ones is this, like, big media YouTube channel show where they invite celebrities and people to go on and they eat various, like, super spicy hot wings. They get a bunch of different actors and celebrities and occasionally cartoon characters and stuff like that, right? It's a pretty, at this point, a rather corporate show. It's entertaining sometimes, right? It's fun to see a celebrity theoretically suffer in pain. I'm not sure if they actually, do eat the spicy hot ones wings or not, but, it's a big show. And these people were angry that they didn't let Kamala on. They asked, they said no. But a thing to mention is that show doesn't allow politicians on. It didn't have Trump on. It just said, we don't do politics. Bye-bye. And they were, like, very clearly mad about that. They were like, if there was ever, I think Dan Pfeiffer, the host of this, he said, if there was ever a podcast that Kamala Harris was made to be on, it was Hot Ones. And it's like, their obsession with this show, in my opinion, maybe this is me being very woke, is basically just racist, right? Like, listen, everyone in the show is white except for Quentin Folks, right? There's 2 white ladies, 2 white dudes. Of course, they say that, like, the black woman Indian candidate would love to be on the show with the spicy chicken. She was made for it. What the hell are you talking about? No, right? They start talking about how, like, even if you have Joe Rogan and won't change the campaign, listen, we did a bunch of very effective things, right? Dan Pfeiffer asked them, hey, what about having Liz Cheney on? What was that about? And they're like, well, listen, Liz Cheney and General Milley and all these other people who were very, very important and vocally anti-Trump, they really helped us get moderate voters. As if that matters, because we still lost. I don't get this idea they have, where it's, listen, guys, we can turn Republicans to the DNC. I know they've been saying for the last 30 years we're all vile, disgusting, satanic communists and will never like us ever. But we can still get the moderate ones who are going to die next year to vote for us in Colorado, while we lose the Latino and the young men demographics and also just the Gen Z demographic in general. That's what we gotta do. It's pathetic. You kidding me? Oh, and they got snippy too. In this show, you're allowed to cuss, right? They said they sounded legit bitter at, like, so many things. And it's like, okay, again, they don't care if they lost because these people will suffer 0 consequences from this election, right? They can afford private health insurance. They're not migrants. They're not immigrants. They're not trans. They're not in the public school system that can pay for their kids to go to private school. They're Democratic campaign advisors, so they sure as shit don't give a about the environment, right? Everything Trump can do, they don't care about, except making them look bad, which they care about that. They started saying stuff like, oh, well, Trump's had several years to seed his messaging, and we only had 107 or 9 days to do it. Oh, it was no time. Are you kidding me? Harris, I don't care what you shot her up with. She could have been way more active in this campaign, right? Put her on every show possible. Make her talk about fucking video games, right? Joe Rogan had Donald Trump on and endorsed him. You know who sponsors Joe Rogan? Call of Duty. Right? Oh, we had a Kamala Harris Fortnite level. No one likes those. You know why Kamala Harris lost? Because she wasn't on my show. That's why. Even though my show came out after the election and also has no audience. Except for the audience you do have. Thank you. That's just a joke. And the other thing is that, like, they talked as if the people who they could only win over were people who vote or have voted in the last election, right? They had no response or talked about anything involving getting people who don't vote to vote, right? Nothing. I didn't even hear him talk about like the actual other reasons why it was difficult to win this year, right? Like recent examples of gerrymandering and voting laws and a bunch of other things, right? This is bad. And another thing. Every time I think about it, there's more things that pop up in my head. So Dan Pfeiffer did ask them, okay, what about people who say that Kamala never tried to actually break away from Biden? Joe Biden, a president with a really low approval rating, right? Ignore everything he's actually done, whatever. People generally don't like him being the president, right? People will say he's too old, he's too slow, he looks gross, get him out. He's done. Goodbye, Joe. Go away. And, you know, if you have a president who is all those things at the moment, and you're running their vice president for president, you say, hey, let's have the vice president separate themselves as far as possible from him. And they were saying, oh, well, you know, if you think about it, Kamala would look very inconsistent and disloyal if she broke away from him. It's like, no, she would look rational. She would look like she was a real person. The only people who wanted Biden to run again were like stupid policy wonks and Democratic slob knobbers, right? Like everyone who was every normal person I know said, yeah, he should not run again. I don't like this attitude they have where they're saying that we actually never could have won. Because, like, bullshit, first off. I don't think that's true. This is like saying that, like, actually Trump could never win in 2016, and they did win. Presidential elections are hard to predict anyways. But yeah, no, their defeatist attitude, I just don't like it. Because it's definitely post-election that they made this up. Beforehand, you ask any of these people, they'd be like, oh yeah, we're 100% gonna win. I mean, it's not even because they were paid to say that, or they're supposed to say that for their campaign, because, you know, it's not like a sports fan saying, yeah, our team's gonna lose before a game, no. But it's more because, like, they probably believed all the numbers they had for it, everything they had for it. They're like, yeah, we're gonna win. Yeah, no, it's just, if you want to angrily listen to something, just listen to that. Afterwards, Pod Save America also had on Hassan Piker, and while, you know, I and other people might have their problems with Hassan Piker, he at least pointed out the problems that the DNC had with this election, right? Running Liz Cheney, stupid. Being conciliatory in any sense of the word, stupid. Saying that, like, actually, we should have a little bit of fracking. Actually, we should have a little bit of oil and trade war stuff. Actually, we should have a little bit of insane border control and deportation, right? That's not going to win you anything. If you have a person who wants to vote for the guy who's going to do the most for the border and being tough on it, who are they going to vote for? Kamala Harris or Trump? They're going to vote for Trump because that's been his thing for years now. And they at least know that, like, you know, the GOP is the tough on the border party, not the Democrats. When they say it, it sounds way more disingenuous, and it kind of is sometimes. And it's like, damn, have an enemy, have a target, be mean, be direct, be aggressive. They responded to everything Trump did this election. They had nothing on their own, right? Every policy they had was a response to him or the lamest shit on the planet that would have no real effect or help nobody, like that stupid tax credit they have for housing. Pathetic. Just a pathetic campaign in general. And, of course, these people are going to go on to run other campaigns, by the way. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to suffer consequences for their loss. They're probably going to be celebrated because, you know, all their talking points are being picked up by news media organizations right now, agreeing they're like, actually, it was impossible to win against Trump in 2024. Actually, it was freaking tough to be a presidential candidate who wasn't an insane lying dipshit. Cool. Anyways, Pod Save America, have me on. I'll tell you how to win elections for the next 30 years. I'm an expert. Anyways, okay. Now, guys, listen. Last podcast, we didn't have a wacky local news story involving animals of some kind because, well, Minnesota as a state sucks and is horrible and should be erased. But when I randomly selected a state this time, it turns out it did land on Florida. And if you've been alive the last couple years, you know that Florida has nothing but wacky news stories alongside the usual crap. And very quickly, in my searches, I found a funny news story involving wild animals and a person getting severely injured. Let's read. They just came at me. Florida tree trimmer stung 100+ times by bees, falls 30 feet to the ground. Brevard County, Florida. A Florida man set off an angry swarm of bees while trimming trees. A frightening encounter that went from bad to worse when the entire hive went on the attack while the victim was stuck 30 feet in the air. A picture shows just how high John Christian was off the ground on Wednesday when he hit a beehive during a post-hurricane tree trimming near Ocala. They just came straight at me. I couldn't get them off me, he said. A souvenir of the honeycomb from the colony that almost killed my husband, said Christian's wife as she held on to the memento placed in the clear plastic bag. Okay. I would honestly tell her, hey, don't keep that thing near me. It's dangerous. It's scary. Anyways, Christian, who lives in Brevard County, said he accidentally hit a switch and that got him stuck in his bucket truck as the bees kept stinging him. I just started hollering help and somebody said jump, so I took off out the side of the machine, he said. I fell 30 feet and I hit the roof and then rolled off the roof to the ground, and them things just kept coming at me. Christian not only survived the vicious bee attack, but the fall as well. The rest of his crew pulled him away from the swarm and rushed him to the hospital. I had no broken bones, no internal bleeding, and whatever they treated me with at the hospital, it's a miracle because the swelling went away, he said. Christian said he's known of his bee allergies since he was a teen, adding he was stung about 120 times, nearly half the times on his head. According to the beehive guy, when he got here to remove them and stuff, he says he told me so many of these stories end up in tragedy, he said. Grant Thomas, a bee removal worker near Orlando, believes there weren't European honeybees that nearly took Christian's life, but actually killer bees. Their comb throughout the whole thing was extremely dark in color. There was no honey on it or whatever, said Thomas. And, you know, typically, whenever you get attacked by bees, or I should say get stung by bees, you've got 3 or 4 stings. You don't get hit with hundreds of times. They were just in his hair and just all over him. Christian said he is grateful to be alive and thankful his coworkers quickly removed him from this life-threatening situation. The doctor said that I either had superhuman strength or I'm the luckiest man in the world, but whichever case it is, stop and play the lottery, he said. Christian went home from the hospital Friday afternoon. He said he's already ordered bee suits in case his tree trimming crew encounter get another storm. Okay, so to summarize this, this is the article. The article is poorly written, by the way. Summarize this. A guy in Florida went to go trim some person's stupid tree with his stupid truck. He went up to the tree itself. He was trimming it. Apparently, there was a hive of killer bees in that tree, and they went apeshit and went straight for his face like any good animal would when it gets angry, right? And they stung him 120 times, most of those on his head. He couldn't lower the truck. He was being attacked. He hit like a switch that wouldn't let him lower it. So somebody, I guess part of his crew or whatever, yelled at him to just jump out, to just jump, right? Which he then jumped 30 feet from the bucket to a roof, then slid and fell off the roof onto the ground. The entire time, the bees were still swarming and stinging his head while that happened, right? But not only did the bee stings not actually injure or hurt him severely, he didn't get hurt from jumping off the side of a 40-foot height, or a 30-foot height onto the ground and presumably like 8 or 9 feet onto the ground. How? This is the luckiest man on the planet. Why? The state's stupid. Wonderful. Anyways, a bit of a shorter episode this time, guys. But don't worry, I'll make up for that in terms of other content. Anyways, see ya.